I realized that as you get older, when you look back, if all you look back and think are all like sad memories, that's a sad life. You have to put the energy in to create great memories, and that takes effort. It takes work and effort to put the big meal on. It takes work and effort to do all those things. And sometimes you feel like, why am I doing this? But then afterwards, I always say, my God, I'm just like, I just put on an engagement party for my daughter. She got engaged. And honest to God, it felt like it was months preparing for it, at least weeks preparing for it. After the night was over and everyone was sleeping, it was 5 a.m. and I was still just sitting outside because it was in the summer with my feet in the pool, just taking it all in and thinking, I don't want this night to end. I want to suck every bit of love from this experience so that when I'm 90, I will remember this feeling. I remember when my youngest was literally a newborn and looking down at her hands and saying, I need to imprint in my mind what her knuckles look like. Her little baby knuckles are just dimples. They're not even knuckles yet. But to be able to remember it, your memory is so important. And if all you look back on your life and remember is painful times, you have to rewrite that script. You have to rewrite that script for yourself. You have to start deciding, I'm going to create great experiences for myself.
2, 1, 0.
Hello, Crystal, and welcome to Stellar Life Podcast. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate you.
Oh, I appreciate you. Thanks for having me.
Before we begin and dive in, can you share a little bit about your passion and a little bit about your personal journey to find it?
Yeah, sure. You know, it's funny when people ask that now because I'm turning 51 in a month.
No way.
And
you look very young.
Oh, thanks. Turning 51 in a month, and I've got 2 grown daughters who are amazing women going out into the world and creating their own dreams. And so it's interesting when I talk about my journey because I feel like the really big part of the journey that was traumatic and impactful, and it was so long ago, but it was really a very tough time. And it's really from the time I was about 12 till I was about 21. And interestingly, I had very little memory. As I got older, I realized there was just so many things I didn't remember. And the only way I knew I didn't remember them was that I would have people that knew me that I hadn't seen in years, especially as an author. When you're an author and you start having books and you're on TV and people from like your childhood come out of the woodwork and they're like, oh, don't you remember we were best friends and you stayed the night at my house? And I'll be like, I don't have a clue who you are. I mean, I wouldn't say that, but I would think, I don't even know who you are. So yeah, it was pretty traumatic. There was sexual abuse and physical abuse. And I mean, I just feel like it's a story that so many women can relate to and have gone through. So I think it's so far behind me now that sometimes I forget how dark it was and how much abuse I went through and homelessness and cervical cancer really young and a really traumatic head injury that left me with seizures. And it was just a really dark time. And something for me switched, something clicked once I had my own daughters, and I had them when I was in my mid-20s. And something in that moment of having these beautiful little girls who I knew were watching me and looking, you don't realize it until you have kids of your own, that children really do look to their parents like the sun and the moon rises and falls on them. And that's when I would say that's when I really truly started my healing journey, that first helped me to look at my own parents through different lenses, to not just look at them as people who made all these mistakes, but people who didn't have a clue what they were doing, having children. And, interestingly, my dad just passed away 2 weeks ago.
Oh my God.
And we had gone through, yeah, that's okay. It's okay. There's a, thankfully, I have a peace about it because I made the decision a few years back And I loved before we went into record mode that you said your mission is to spread light and love. And I made the decision a few years ago, after we'd been estranged for maybe 7 or 8 years, that this is crazy. My dad's getting old, and I just don't have it in me to hold this. I mean, I understand having fierce boundaries and making sure you protect yourself, but I was at an age that I thought, this is crazy for me to be holding on to so much pain from the past for so long. And so I made it sort of my mission the last 2.5 years of his life that I was going to teach my dad how to love. I don't know if I did, but wow. I literally thought to myself, I am going to teach my father how to love. I am going to just love him. So thankfully I was with him right up until the last day and was able to be in hospice with him and hold his hand and play his favorite music from 30 years ago and cry and be with him. And so it's a pretty big full circle moment to know that these people who created the most pain of anyone, you can also find something at some point in your own heart to forgive. So I don't know, that I just kind of got into my dad when we were talking about my journey, but it probably all seems to make sense for me right now, because I think we hold on. I've really realized that now, that we waste so much joy. We just waste so much of our joy holding on to things that we don't need to hold on to any longer. We did it. We've been there. It hurt us. We learned. We set boundaries. Maybe we didn't. And then there has to come a point that you just decide that your joy and your happiness and your love and your dreams and your passion have to become more important than holding on to grudges and old stories and stuff that keep you really disempowered and angry.
The story about your dad and what happened and how you healed it is very beautiful and inspiring. And I hope somebody who's watching or listening right now and they're in the same boat maybe will consider doing something like that for themselves, because when we hold that pain, we hurt ourselves. And I'm sure that you
realize it. You know what? I didn't even realize how much energy went into my entire life of trying to navigate that relationship and get his love. Even when you have a boundary, even when you set a boundary, even when you step away, there's still always energy that it's taking to hold the boundary, to remember the pain, to stay stuck in the story, to tell yourself that you're more empowered now. Like all of that still takes energy. And I just think when you have too much energy caught up into protecting and holding on, and there's not enough energy left over to create your own best life and to live with joy and happiness. So it's been profound for me. It's only been, he passed on October 31st of all days. And it's been really profound for me that I think I'm so happy I gave myself the gift of going back and cleaning stuff up so that I could be at peace now.
Wow, it's so beautiful. So when you were in your mid-20s and you look at your daughters and something is switching, what was that switch and what did you do about it?
Love. Love. The switch was love. It was the realization of this is what love feels like. Oh my gosh. There was a realization of, if this is what love is, then everything I've been doing up until now hasn't been love. It's been even the way I looked at the way I treated myself. Like I put so much energy into loving them, feeding them healthy food, caring about what they watched, what they thought, how they felt, their emotions, what they needed. And there was just this realization of, if this is what love is, I haven't been doing this for myself. I didn't even know what self-love was. So it was far deeper than just eating healthy food. It was just, how do you show up for yourself? How do you talk to yourself? It was just a big shift. And it allowed me to open up my heart towards And listen, I'm still estranged from my mother. It's been 14, 15 years. So it's not like I got this whole thing figured out. But yeah, it was a shift on my mom had to have loved me. I didn't mean to be sad and depressed about it, but it was a realization, like all the mistakes my parents made, but they had to have loved me. Because when you hold your baby in your arms for the first time, you think there's no denying this feeling. So even though they made mistakes and they got it wrong, and they did, love was the healing elixir for me.
Yeah. And thank you for acknowledging that you're not perfect. Because a lot of time when somebody's in your position where they had success and they're a coach and they have some sort of a guru status and women look up to them and admiring them, it's easy to be like, I'm perfect, I'm holier than thou, and let me teach you. But when you share, I feel like it makes it so much more relatable to understand that it doesn't matter where you are in life. We all have our own journeys, and it's an ever expanding, ever growing process of self-love, it's like we never get it. It's not about getting
it's
there.
like we're dynamic, right? Human beings are dynamic. We have this full range of emotions, and when you start to realize, but we do get to choose the way that we tell ourselves the stories. And if you can change the way you're telling yourself the story about who you are, you're going to have a far better chance at creating a good life for yourself, because you're making yourself the hero of your own life. But if you put yourself on a pedestal, and here's the truth, it's not even so much that you put yourself on a pedestal, it's that you realize people are starting to put you on a pedestal. And the problem with that is that when you mess up, and you're going to, because you're human, they're devastated that you've messed up. And it doesn't serve them. It doesn't serve you. So you're far better, in my experience anyways, to just be transparent that you're a human. You've had some good success. Maybe you had some good luck. Maybe you have some good genes. You're lucky. That's great. But you still have to do the daily work like everybody else every day, of feeling your feelings, processing your feelings, figuring out how you're talking to yourself about this. Are you talking in a way that's going to serve you? And recognizing that, of course, you're going to fall again. But I think the tools that I teach women and that you teach, it enables you to climb back up the empowerment spectrum, closer to living in love and joy and peace and kindness, faster and faster. But you're going to fall again. You're human. I remember, you talk about gurus. I don't even want to say who the guru is, because he's still a pretty famous guru. But I remember when I first got the first opportunity to interview him, like we're talking 25 years ago. No, not 25, 20 years ago, 17 years ago, whatever it was. And I remember listening to this guru talk about how he hasn't been angry in 40 years. And I literally thought to myself, how is that possible? Anger is a natural human emotion. If there's an injustice, if like the Me Too movement, all of that, it's not that anger is an unhealthy emotion. It's what you do with anger. It's what you do with fear. All of these feelings they're all human, and they're all necessary. And if channeled the right way, they keep you in check of like, oh, I'm falling into fear. Okay, so if I wasn't afraid, what would I do? And like, you allow yourself to fully embody the feeling without becoming the emotion. That's what I've learned. Even with my father dying, grief is like waves. They just come in, and you might cry hard for 30 seconds, but if you don't become the emotion, they wash back out. And then you come back into your resting place. And the more that you work on getting your natural set point higher, then your natural resting place is more buoyant.
Yeah.
It's easier to come back to love. It's easier to come back to kindness and being reasonable and all of those things. It just becomes easier. So of course, we're human beings. We're human beings. Anyone who tries to pretend they never are afraid, or they're never angry, or they're never jealous, or they're never insecure, they're lying.
Yeah. Yeah, I was lucky enough to meet some pretty famous people and mentors, and some of them are very genuine in real life, and some of them have disappointed
I know.
me. Some of them have disappointed me.
But see, that's the thing about the disappointment, and that's what I'm getting at, is that we as people put other people on this thing. Like, I know, I remember when I got my first book deal with Hay House. I was 33 years old. I was flown down to California, and there I was with Reed Tracy, the president of Hay House, and he was giving me a 3-book deal and a radio show on Sirius Satellite, and then invited me to all the I Can Do It events. And there I was with Louise Hay and Wayne Dyer and all the big, and some of them, like you said, were just like, oh, you're so amazing, I love being around you. And some of them, it was so, what's the word? It was like, I'm so disenchanted. I'm so disillusioned. I'm so confused. And then I started to realize, well, they're just people. And they might be a great messenger. They might be a great teacher. They might be brilliant. They might understand concepts, but it doesn't mean that they're living it.
Yeah.
And
I used to do that.
Everybody. I took everybody off the pedestal. I literally at that point just went, we're all equal. No one is better than me, and I'm not better than anyone. No one. And we're all equals. And that was like, oh, so then I can be my real me, and I don't have to put myself somewhere. And then we can all start meeting each other without the hierarchy. The hierarchy is what's changing. That's what women are doing. Women are changing the hierarchy that every business has been run on, and politics is run on, and there's always someone at the top. And women don't work that way. We're about circles. We work in circles. We work in like, oh, there's no one that's better. We're all important. We all bring something different to the table. It's like a wheel. We all are different spokes. And if one of us are too big, we won't roll together. We won't move together. We won't make things happen together. So I feel like the whole hierarchy of doing business is changing. Everything is changing a lot in the last 10 years, especially.
Yeah. I like the idea of not putting people on pedestals, and I have learned to separate the guru from the message, like the person, the human being from the whatever they're teaching. Like, just take what I need, and if something doesn't work, just leave it aside. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they're a great person or less. Like, it's about the teachings and how it helped me with my life or with serving others. And that's the most important thing.
I agree.
I want to talk about your book. What is an emotional edge?
Oh, the emotional edge. That was my 5th book. I did that book, and it was amazing. That book came through me almost like I felt like I was learning the material as I was writing it. I felt like it was coming through me, and it was like, I felt like I was going down the rabbit hole, to be honest with you. So The Emotional Edge is a book that's now been featured on Oprah.com a few times. I love being able to say that, because you can take my emotional age quiz to find out what your emotional age is. And it really amazed me, surprised me, shocked me that no psychologist had ever written on emotional age. We've written on biological age, that there's a theory that, I'm 51 in a month, and I feel like I'm forever going to be 33. That's my biological age. I know things are starting to change, but I feel like in my being, I'm young. I still feel young. That's my biological age. Emotional age is different though. Emotional age has nothing to do with your chronological age. It has to do with the way that you're showing up in the world. And the great psychologists, whether it was Jung, whether it was Freud, whether it was even transactional analysis, a lot of the great psychologists have said that the personality of every human being, the psyche of the human being, has 3 parts. So Freud was like, we have the id, the superego, the ego. Carl Jung was like, we have the shadow, we have the ego, we have the collective unconscious. So I came up with this idea that I said, well, within all of us, we all have a child, we all have a parent, and we all have an adult. And so emotional age and getting the edge is learning how to show up as a woman. So I don't want to be your mother when I'm in a relationship with a man, and I don't want to be a child, and I want to show up as a woman. But for a lot of us, especially us women, when you think about that 100 years ago, there was nowhere in the world that we were considered people yet under the law. We weren't considered a person anywhere. This isn't just like, oh, in this country or that. So women were really taught to be either a mother. And in fact, if you read the books, and I have them all from like the first wave of the women's movement and the second wave of the women's movement, they would literally refer to women as a drudge or a doll. So a doll meant you were the pretty, you were the sexy, you pleasured men, you knew how to be a trophy, you could be cute, sassy, coy, difficult, demanding, or a drudge. And a drudge meant you cooked the meals, you gave birth to the children, you maintained the home. And so women almost felt like they had to make a choice. Either I'm going to be a selfless, giving, caring woman, or I'm going to be cute, coy, demanding, difficult, charming. And there was almost this, I have to choose which one, or we fall back and forth in between. And getting the edge is learning how to almost connect with and learn who your mother energy is, when she was formed, why did you create her, when is she in charge, and getting to know her. And then getting to know this child who's sometimes an 18-year-old, don't get me wrong, and she's promiscuous and wild and crazy, but getting to know her, at least these are my two, and learning how to integrate them into the wholeness of who you are, so you can literally show up in the world as a woman. And what does it mean to be a woman? You know, I think about Carl Jung and all his archetypes, and yet he has no archetype for the woman.
Huh.
Like all the archetypes, but we have the dangerous old woman, we have the maiden and the crone. We don't have, what is a woman? What does it mean to be a woman in this world? So that sort of became my mission, is like, what does it mean to be a woman? Does she have to be a certain size? Does she have to need no one? Can she need someone? Should she have children? What if she doesn't want children? What does it mean to be a woman? So that's sort of been my quest the last few years, is really getting to know women from all over the world and understand. And really, you can almost recognize the women who have so stepped into their power. You can feel it when you're around them. There's something about them that brings out the best in other women. There's no competition. It's just something about them. And when I'm around them, when I'm around those kind of women, it empowers me to be my best self. And so that's sort of the mission I'm on now, is how do we help women heal this inner child, heal this wounded mother, so that you can show up as your best self too.
Right. What was your journey of empowerment and owning who you are? What was it like?
Yeah. So I always feel like it's that same old story. It goes right back to like, who was I as a little girl? What did I learn from watching my mother? What did I learn from watching the women in my life? What did I learn from my grandmother? What did I learn about what it means to be a woman? What did I learn about sex? What did I learn about my sexual identity? What did I learn about who I am? What my purpose is? All of that. I think our journey, all of us, start at childhood. Mm-hmm. We make a decision by the time we're 5 years old. Psychologists say this. We literally make a decision by the time we're 5 years old, how we will live and how we will die. So imagine in your little childlike brain, you're only 5 years old and you're watching all of these people around you, and you're making decisions about who you are, your life, what it's going to look like. I came from an angry, beautiful feminist that hated men. That was my mother. I came from a father who was charming and chauvinistic and a bully and driven and ambitious, and felt that women are here to serve him. God bless him. And a mother who is angry and literally said things to me as a little girl, like, never get married, never have children. They ruin your life. Like it was very this dichotomy. But thankfully, I had a grandmother who was so loving and who was just but she would also be like, when I was getting to a certain age, she'd be like, you got to find a good husband. You got to put his meal on the table every night at 5 o'clock. You've got to be. So I had all these different messages I was taking in. I was also born I was born in 1970. So if you think about the movement for women that began in the 70s, there's a big shift that happened. And then the 80s and Jane Fonda and everyone needs to be skinny and everyone needs to eat carrots. And then the 90s and and I look at it and I think it's so crazy when somebody says, do you know that the 80s were 40 years ago? I'm like, how is that crazy? I remember being in the 80s. So I just feel like the journey has been, and then watching Oprah, like literally no joking. I was homeless at 16. I moved out at 15. I was homeless. And there I watched for the very first time this overweight Black woman. And she just stole everyone's hearts. And we all just felt like she was our mother. And I literally I figure out how to watch her show every day. And I would think to myself, well, what would Oprah do? And so Oprah became my mother, even though I didn't. So I just felt like I had these different women and then I had my daughters. So there's my journey. Those little girls just cracked my heart open and was like, I got to get this right. I got to get it right for them. I've got to get it right to give them the best life. I want to give them the best start in life. And to think now, like one of my daughters is working with A-list celebrities as a makeup artist. She's only 25. And she's already been at SNL and the American Music Awards. And we live in a little town of 400 people in Canada. But she got there, and I didn't get her there, but she got there because there was an energy that I brought them up with, that I just knew, even if I didn't get it, I know this is what women need. I know this is what little girls need. I know this is what teenage girls need. So my journey's certainly not over. I still have way bigger fish to fry. I have way bigger dreams that I haven't stepped into yet. And so I just feel like getting older means getting smarter, bolder, brighter, bigger. Like I feel like, oh my God, where am I going to be at 60?
What is your dream when you get to 60?
Well, I don't have a dream at 60, but I feel like I want to continue increasing I hate to use it in this way, but visibility. I want to reach more people. I want to touch more lives. I want to empower more women. I just want love. I really just want to look back on my life and feel like I lived with so much love. I gave love. My family's so important to me. The things that really matter, I feel like I've got clarity on like what really matters. Loving the people you love, memories, creating great memories. Like we can't get so busy with life that we're not taking the trip, making the meal, celebrating that occasion. Like I realized that as you get older, when you look back, if all you look back and think are all like sad memories, that's a sad life. You have to put the energy in to create great memories. And that takes effort. It takes work and effort to put the big meal on. It takes work and effort to do all those things. And sometimes you feel like, why am I doing this? But then afterwards, I always say, my God, I just put on an engagement party for my daughter. She got engaged. And honest to God, it felt like it was months preparing for it, at least weeks preparing for it. After the night was over and everyone was sleeping, it was 5 a.m. and I was still just sitting outside because it was in the summer with my feet in the pool, just taking it all in and thinking, I don't want this night to end. I want to suck every bit of love from this experience so that when I'm 90, I will remember this feeling. I remember when my youngest was literally a newborn and looking down at her hands and saying, I need to imprint in my mind what her knuckles look like. Her little baby knuckles are just dimples. They're not even knuckles yet. But to be able to remember it, your memory is so important. And if all you look back on your life and remember is painful times, you have to rewrite that script. You have to rewrite that script for yourself. You have to start deciding, I'm going to create great experiences for myself.
Yeah. What is empowerment coaching? Well, how does it, what's the difference between that and other type of coaching?
Yeah, I love that you asked that, because a lot of people don't understand what it is. Empowerment, if you think about what it means to be empowered, what does it mean to be empowered? The ability to make choices for yourself, the ability to stand in your power, the ability to use your voice, the ability to know that you're equal, the ability to, for me, empowerment coaching, we literally have, and I created an empowerment spectrum. So it's all based on, if you think power, you think the more powerful you are. Well, I always just think of it as the lighter you are, the brighter you are, the more energy you have. And I don't mean frenetic energy, I mean authentic energy. Like me saying I'm up at 5 a.m., just like still, I mean, like I haven't gone to sleep yet because I'm loving the energy, the magic. So empowerment coaching is that we look at the full spectrum of emotions, from shame and guilt all the way up to, you know, acceptance and reason and love and joy. And that we energy or emotion by emotion, we meet a client where they're at, and through a series of questions, processes, and meditations and different interventions, we authentically shift them one energy or emotion at a time until they can see themselves, their life, their situation, their challenges through a higher perspective, and that they can make a more empowered decision for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
We're not a life coach. We don't put a list of to-dos like this week you're going to get this done. And that's important too. We're not therapy. We are not like, and then what did he say? And then what did you say? And then what did he say? We help a woman. We're really about coaching from the body, not from the head. So all of those emotions lie in the body, and we're able to like help a woman travel into her body and to realize the story she's been telling herself, and then level by level rewrite that story until she's finally the shero of her own life.
Yeah.
And it's authentic and it's sustainable.
Yes.
And then it's a step-by-step process so that when she falls again, and she will, because it's part of being a human being, when we give our power away again, until we figure this thing out, we actually have a step-by-step process to being like, okay, I gave my power away. Now I need to climb back up to taking my power back and stepping back into my power. Because when you're empowered, you really do make way better decisions and choices for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I love the idea of connecting to the body. A lot of us live from here up. There's so much information and fear around what's going on these days, from the media and from society. It's really easy to get caught up in our heads and get disconnected from our bodies. And when we are disconnected from our bodies, we shut down our emotions and we shut down everything that we are. And that can actually
we're just numb. We just want to numb it. We just want to be so numbed out.
Yeah, and when you push something down, those emotions for so long, it can manifest as depression or disease, or either a mental disease or a physical disease. And because you're the one that manifested those, you are also the one that can heal it. So you're
the only one.
Yes.
You're the only one.
Yes. So what are some advice about connecting to the body and getting out of your head and into your body and recognizing the emotions?
Yeah, your body is your messenger. Your body is the messenger of your spirit. Your body is the messenger of your soul. Your body is always talking to you 24/7. It's telling you what it likes, what you don't like. I almost am like, your body is a truth barometer. And when you learn how to listen to your body will actually be like, ding, 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 green light, go. This feels so good. And it also says, just pause, proceed with caution. And it also tells you when to stop. Your body, and it's interesting because your body also is your secret keeper. So every story you've ever been through, every experience, it's all stored in the body. And like you said, it can manifest in different ways. So I start just with a simple meditation of, I will say, close your eyes. Let's imagine we're up in your busy brain. And there's a little you standing there on a little platform like an elevator. And we're just going to close our eyes and we're going to just press the down button on your elevator. And you're just going to let yourself lower down, down, down. And sometimes it gets stuck and you realize, oh my gosh, like I'm really having a hard time moving. So I just help her to move down and I say, let's connect with your breath. Let's get out of your busy brain and let's get down and connect with your breath. Let your shoulders come down from your ears. Take a deep breath. Let your hands relax. When I gave birth, and I gave birth naturally, and I really amazed the nurses. I know I sound like I'm being a guru right now, and I don't mean to, but I'm like, I can help women give birth. I can help women do. But I was so connected to my body when I was in labor that no one checked on me once.
Wow.
And I sat in the dark in a rocking chair and I just kept my hands completely relaxed. And I kept thinking every labor pain was like a tidal wave. And I was either going to fight through the waves and exhaust myself, or I could see my baby coming to me with every wave. And the more that I just relaxed and allowed this process to unfold, and honest to goodness, 5 hours later, on my very first birth, I said, oh my God, I feel the baby coming out. Like I was that calm. And my husband was like, no, they said it was going to be hours. I was like, no, the baby's coming out. But that was and even pushing her out, nurses came afterwards and said, what do you do? How did you push her out that fast? And I just was so connected to my body, to her, even like the silliest things, like when you get hiccups, do you know where your diaphragm is? Can you feel it? And then you just go and talk to it. Like you literally say to your diaphragm, slow down, relax, open up. As you feel the hiccup coming on, you just breathe through it. In my book, The Emotional Edge, the very first line says, I'm damned if I do and I'm damned if I don't. So what should I do? And the very last word in the book is breathe. Because we really do realize that when we take these nice deep breaths, it's funny because people get caught up in the word meditation. And I always say, don't worry about meditating. Just let's breathe together for 5 minutes. Let's just breathe together. And just the breathing of that in itself can reconnect you. And I'm very connected to my body. I'm a yoga teacher. I'm a nutritionist. So I'm also very connected to my physical body, but I always just help women reconnect and find the wounded spot. I always say, let's travel around and imagine you have a special X-ray machine and you could just laser in on every ache, every pain. Let's just go to one of them right now. Let's just go to the heaviest one and let's go into it instead of fighting it, because there's something wounded in there that needs your attention. So being mad at it and taking painkillers and rejecting the pain only amplifies, right? What you fear, you draw near. What you repress finds a way to be expressed. All those great sayings. And I always just say, let's travel into it and let's ask it how old it is. What is it feeling? If you could give that feeling an emotion, what would it be? Is it anger? Is it sorrow? Is it fear? I give her those words. How long has it been there? Who is it connected to? What would we have to do to help you release this? Then I might empower her to write a letter to that person. Then we burn it together. I just feel as always, we have to really see ourselves as, and I'm certainly not the only or the first, but that we really are, I loved when I heard Jane Fonda say in Masterclass with Oprah, we're not meant to be perfect, we're meant to be whole. And I just think so many women are so confused by that. What does it mean to be whole? It means really to embody all of these pieces of who we are, not just body, mind, and spirit, but all of these wounded little pieces, all of the pieces of ourselves that we buried so deep in our basement, so to speak, in our subconscious, in our bodies, that we just almost letting them come up one by one and getting to know them and love them and thank them and tell them that you got this now, the real you. You're gonna take over. You're gonna help them. So it's some really neat dialoguing work between you and your other selves. I call it working with parts. And it just becomes because when you start to realize that you're always having a conversation in your head about you, once you realize that, then you can start to realize, but the real you is the listener. You're not any of those voices. You're not any of those conversations. The real you is the part that's listening to all of them. And when you can start to make peace with all these conversations that are going on, something gets quiet and you're able to just come back to yourself, come back to your wholeness, which is in your body. If you were to say, point to yourself, I've never seen someone do this. If I were to say, point to you, I've never seen someone do this. So you're not your mind. You're something inside here. So we have to be connected to our bodies to be empowered.
Yeah, I love that. I had a psychic reading a couple of days ago, and one of the images that was shown for me was that I have a box, and when I open the box, there's another box, and then I open it, there's another box, and inside there's another box and another box. And he was telling me, you are now on a journey inside. And I've been through many seminars and studied from many people and traveled the world and all that. And it's always like, what can they teach me? And he was telling me, like, go inside, because there is so much truth when we go inside, when we are connected to all those parts that we have created that had a role, function, and purpose in protecting us at a certain time. But that part that was protecting us at 5-year-old might not be useful right now and might be holding us back. So I love the way you do it and the way you connect to all those parts and you heal them and you embrace them. What do you do with the parts? Do you let them go? Do you embrace them?
I never get rid of them. They're you. So I can't even imagine, especially in yoga, because I'm a yoga teacher as well. And so there's all these different healing modalities and they all matter and they're all important and they're all wonderful. But I remember when I first started doing yoga, and of course I was an overachiever. I was a wounded girl that wanted to prove my worth. So everything I did, I was an overachiever. Whether that's because I was so abused or whether that's just because it's my drive and my personality, it didn't matter. I remember my first going in for teacher training and I was trying to get myself in a certain pose. And the teacher was mean. I thought she was mean. And she was like, stop trying so hard. Your ego is so huge. You need to get rid of your ego. But I remember thinking, but you can't get rid of your ego. Your ego is part of you. So it would be far better for me to get to know my ego and understand why she's a perfectionist, why she's an overachiever, why she needs people to love her. What does she need? So rather than saying, get rid of her, I would have to say, oh my God, you must be exhausted. I didn't even know. I'm so sorry that I put you in charge. Or if your part, that part that we're talking about is a scared little girl, how do you get rid of her? Why would you get rid of your scared little girl? You need to take her up out of the basement. I always kind of make jokes. I always talk about everything being in the basement. Like we bury everything down in our basement. So I always say, like, imagine that you just go down there with a light and you start to find all these buried parts of you and you invite them up to the dining room table and you get to know them and you find out what they need and you find out why they're scared and you find out, why did I get rid of you? Why am I so embarrassed of you? Why am I so ashamed of you? I'm so sorry. I love you. Forgive me. I've got this now. The real me, Crystal at 51, I can take care of us. I got this now. So my inner mother can protect my inner child. And the real me can go out and run the show. But if I'm at odds with my inner child, she's going to keep bashing on the basement door trying to get my attention. You know, it's interesting when you talked about the boxes. Part of the meditation that I do is I always say, now let's travel over to your heart and let's just ask it if it's open and full of love and safety, or is it scared and hiding behind a wooden cabinet? And most women, it's hiding. It's hiding. It's scared. It's been hurt. And I always just say to women, like, I understand why you've locked your heart in behind that wooden cabinet, because you've been hurt and you're scared and you don't want to be hurt again. But for the next 5 minutes, can we just find the key to the cabinet and unlock it. Let's take the cabinet off and just feel what it feels like to breathe with your heart so open and free. And you can, oh my gosh, and do you know there's a little faucet on your heart and it's connected to this omnipotent ocean of love? Why don't we turn the faucet out? And at first it's like just a couple drips. And then I say, turn it a little more. And then let that energy, that omnipotent holy water just fill through you and wash around like a warm blanket on those painful places. And women have tremendous healing just from using your own mind, connecting with your own body.
Yeah, because you are talking directly to their subconscious mind. The subconscious mind understands symbols and metaphors. It doesn't understand logic and smart talk.
It doesn't understand words even necessarily. That's why we dream.
When you give the images, when you give the
That's
images, it's like, oh, I know what to do now. Open to love, yay!
And that's why this works. It doesn't matter what country, what nationality. It doesn't matter what religion. It doesn't even matter what gender you are. This all makes sense to all of us because we are all connected to this something. And to me, I mean, it doesn't matter what you call that something, but it is a powerful energy. And when you connect to that, you open yourself up to all the wisdom of all the people that are so wise too, and so empowered too. When you realize I'm part of that, I can connect with that same force, that same power, that same energy. And so that becomes exciting, that you don't have to be blocked. You can open yourself up and know how to still protect yourself, but to open yourself up to the flow.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally believe in that. I call it the universal Google. It's just like you open a channel and everything comes. Like even when I work with people, and sometimes I get stuck because it doesn't matter how much you learn. Everything that you learn is 0.0000000 of the real knowledge that is out there, the real wisdom. And so just open yourself as open your vessel and allow the wisdom to come in, and then I will ask the right question or see an image or say the right word. But
you're trusting yourself that you're connected to that. You call it the universal Google. I call it the deuce, the divine universal collective energy. So I've always just say, oh, I'm talking to the deuce. Like my husband would literally be like, I'm just connected to the deuce right now. Like I'm just channeling. That's why I mean, like books. I've written 5 books, and I feel like I hear people talking about how it took them years to write a book. And I'm like, I wrote one of my books in 7 days, 70,000 words, 70,000 words in 7 days. I just wrote, I cried, I didn't eat, I didn't sleep. Now don't get me wrong. I'm a little crazy. That was my mad science. It was coming through me. But I open myself up. I close everything else off. I literally shut the internet down. Like my kids, when they were like teenagers, would be like, I need the internet. I'd be like, no, I'm writing a book. I can't have any energy. Like I took it a little too far. I'm a little more balanced now with like, okay, like I think when you first really open yourself up to spirituality and you have these big shifts that you feel, it can be scary. The healing process can be very scary. When you first start cracking open, it can be scary. It's sort of like, it reminds me of that true story of the clay Buddha from Thailand. And it's a true story that in 1957, they were moving this 5-ton statue of a clay Buddha that had been deserted in a temple. And they were moving this 5-ton statue to a new temple in Bangkok. And in the midst of moving it, one of the straps broke. And the statue fell and hit the ground and cracked. And everyone was horrified until they realized there's something glistening under there. And they did something that would take a lot of courage. They began chipping off the clay. And they discovered that under the clay was a solid golden Buddha. And the story goes that hundreds of years earlier, the Burmese army was coming into Thailand at the time. And the monks knew this solid golden statue is so valuable, it will surely be stolen. So they devised this brilliant plan: cover the gold with clay so that it won't be stolen. And the plan worked, except the army slaughtered every single monk, and the story could never be passed on. So I often say we're just like that. We were a little girl and we were born golden. We were golden. We were shiny. We were bright. We loved ourselves. We loved life. Why wouldn't life love us? Then things happened and people didn't understand us. And we started to just put on these forms of protection to keep our gold safe. The trouble is some women reach a certain age and they don't even remember that they had gold. They don't know where they hid their gold. But I always say the good news is that you can never lose it. It's in your body. It's in you. So the forms of protection are all the different archetypes that we take on, all the different masks and personas, all the wounded selves, all the versions of ourselves along the way. And that's why when you first have the cracking open, it can feel terrifying. If you've ever, I don't know if you've just always been spiritual, but I've worked with a lot of women that all of a sudden have like a very spiritual moment. And it's scary almost, like, what's going on? Like I'm crying, I'm healing, I'm opening myself up to something. I'm scared. Is this tidal wave of emotions going to overtake me? So we shut it back down. Mm-hmm. But when you start to realize, just like me talking about my father passing, true emotions last about 30 seconds. If you hear a funny joke, you will laugh hard for about 30 seconds, but then it dissipates. You'd have to hear another funny joke. So that's how true emotions pass through us. Fear is meant to be a quick shot of adrenaline to get you the hell out of Dodge. You're not meant to live in fear. You're meant to have a quick, oh shit, this doesn't feel right. I need to move away. You know, in Sri Lanka and Thailand, when the tsunamis hit, I found it fascinating that none of the animals were killed in the tsunami. Only domesticated animals, only dogs and cats that were kept down. But every animal from the land felt something coming. They are so connected to their bodies and to the universe and to nature. They intuitively knew to go to high ground. But human beings, we've turned off that radar. We don't know how to really feel real fear. And it's different from anxiety. Real fear it's important for you to be able to know what is real fear so that I can navigate my way. But I think a lot of us just live in a simmering, low-grade anxiety and low-grade depression all the time. So the cracking open is like the chipping away of the clay. And it can be really liberating. And you get all this energy all of a sudden that you can feel almost bipolar and manic until you start to realize that's what you're actually supposed to be buoyant. We are designed to be very buoyant and very happy and very joyous. And then we put on all the stuff that weighs us down. So when we first start chipping off and we start stepping into our power, it can be scary. And we cannot always know how to navigate it. And people can start saying things to you like, I don't know, I don't like you anymore. You've changed. I have changed. I let go of 50 pounds of baggage. I have changed. I'm not the same person. I'm buoyant. I'm lighter. So join me or let me go because I'm going.
Exactly. Beautiful. Beautiful. Wow. I want to speak with you more. I need at least 30 more, 40, maybe 50 more hours. But I want to be respectful of your time. And before we say goodbye for now, I have two questions. One is, where can people find you? And I know that you also have a coaching certification for women who want to learn your system and this beautiful method of yours. And the second one is, what are your 3 top tips to living a stellar life?
Okay, great. So the first one, I always just want to say, I have lots of different websites. I have a magazine, I have my personal website, but I always just want to say S.W.A.T.institute.com, Simply Woman Accredited Trainer. When I first named it that, I had so many, people say, why would you call it SWAT? That sounds so masculine. And I said, because we're the new special weapons and tactical that's going to heal the world, one woman at a time. And it really does work that way. It is one woman at a time, one important human being at a time. And the trickle effect becomes exponential. So SWATinstitute.com, www.SWATinstitute.com. You can find me at my name on Facebook. I'm still old and just getting the hang of Instagram. My kids will say, Mom, you're too old for Instagram. I'm like, no, everybody's on Instagram now. I suck at all that stuff. But so you can find me at Crystal Andrus Morissette, my name on Facebook, and my 3 top tips for living your best life. Oh my God, I'm going to make it so basic. Get your sleep. Like, you need your sleep. I need to sleep. Okay, I'm just so funny. I was about to say, take your makeup off before you go to bed. No. Okay, I'm being really silly. Drink your water. My 3 best tips for living your best life. Become your own best friend. And if you don't know how to do that, sign up for free mentorship coaching through my school. Like, literally, we offer any woman anywhere in the world empowerment coaching at no charge. So do whatever you've got to do to become your own best friend, because no one is going to love you like you love you. And we really do teach people how to treat us by the way we love ourselves. It's all about the way we love ourselves. So I'm going to say, become your own best friend, nourish your body, and believe in your dreams. I don't know why. Those are the ones that just popped up for me for now.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure and an honor speaking with you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time and being such a bright light in the world. And thank you for your love and your care.
Thank you. Thank you too. Thank you for having me. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you. And thank you, listeners. Remember to get your sleep, become your own best friend, and nourish your body and your dreams, and have a stellar life. This is Orion. Till next time.